So I invite you to take a road trip with me. Imagine that you are headed out on a family vacation. Perhaps it's to a wedding or to one of your favorite spots that you're careening down the road, a familiar sight. The world is whizzing past your windshield and you're singing along to your favorite tunes. It's something that we've done time and time again. And now I ask you to shift a little bit to a different journey, one that puts you at the intersection of a global humanitarian crisis, one that exists in plain sight, probably around the corner at the truck stop that you're passing on your vacation. I'm talking about human trafficking. It is a global epidemic. It impacts more than 50 million people a year. It is the second largest criminal enterprise in the world. Did you know that human traffickers garner more than $150 billion annually by selling their victims? It is a crime that knows no boundaries, but it requires our compassion, our conscious justice, and our commitment to eradicate it in our lifetime. People ask me all the time, why are you committed to the fight against human trafficking? There are so many reasons to care, but I'm going to share with you 3 reasons why I'm personally committed. Number 1, as a human being and an advocate for eradicating systemic inequities, it is unconscionable to me that the number of people that are sold and forced into modern-day slavery today is on the rise. The United Nations has set a goal of eliminating forced labor by 2025 and slavery completely by 2030. But by all estimates, we have a long way to go. And so we can't think about human trafficking as someone who's over there, who made decisions that were bad and have one choice, people who don't look like us. It actually is when people are forced, defrauded, and coerced into a life that they never imagined. The second reason that I am passionate about human trafficking is because as the head of social impact and at UPS, a global logistics provider, my team has the ability to use our scale, scope, and reach to educate people and to bring them along to fight this horrific fight. And so we're doing that every day, but we need help. The third reason that I'm passionate about human trafficking is because I'm a Black woman. I'm a mother to a 16-year-old daughter and an 18-year-old son. And although human trafficking does not discriminate in race, ethnicity, or age, it disproportionately impacts women who look like me. In fact, the National Human Trafficking Hotline in 2021 reported that 60% of the callers during 2021 were Black women and girls. And so if you think about the systemic reasons, health disparities, access, a lack of access, poverty, those are all things that make women and girls of color more vulnerable to human trafficking. And then when you layer on the fact that the criminal justice system is also prejudiced, you find that women and girls of color are arrested for prostitution more often, which means that they have criminal records which prevent them from finding sustainable, livable wage work, which means they go back on the street. And so the cycle continues over and over again. So I'm here speaking out as a human being, as an advocate, as a leader of a global company that is wanting to make a change, but also I'm speaking out on behalf of my sisters, my mother, my daughter, because I believe that when we solve for the marginalized, we can solve for everyone. So life is like a call and response. I've shared with you some statistics about human trafficking and why it matters and how horrific the crime is. But I also want to leave you with the impression that there is hope. There are definitely things that all of us can do, and I've seen this with my work every day at UPS. We have a purpose statement. It's called Moving Our World Forward by Delivering What Matters. And when you think about UPS, you probably think about your UPS driver, the person that delivers to your home every day in the brown shorts. I know y'all love the brown shorts. But what if I told you that our company actually has a purpose beyond delivering things to your front door, to actually creating a more equitable and just world? And that's the work we do at the UPS Foundation. And we can't do it alone. So we have a multi-pronged strategy that involves a policy prohibiting anti-human trafficking and using company resources to prohibit or to procure sex on company time. We also work with nonprofit partners, and we believe in educating our drivers. So let me tell you a little bit about that. One of our best partnerships is with an organization called Truckers Against Trafficking. They're a Denver-based company, and their whole purpose is to train drivers to see the signs of human trafficking, to understand the red flags, and to be willing to make a phone call to law enforcement. Because the best way that you can hope to arrest and to bust these rings is by credible tips. And so we worked with Truckers Against Trafficking to train more than 130,000 UPS drivers and 3,000 pilots to see the signs of human trafficking along their routes. Now, a few brave souls have told us that at truck stops, they've seen the girls knocking on the cabs of their doors, knocking on cars in the parking lots. Some of the drivers admitted that there are names for these girls. They call them lot lizards. We have to make sure that this isn't a normalized conduct. And so by training these drivers and helping them to understand the signs and asking them, don't get out, don't try to put yourself in jeopardy. We want you to make the call. We also want you to be aware so that you can listen for chatter on your CB radios about girls being sold at truck stop exits. And we want you to leave paraphernalia and pamphlets at rest stops so that the girls know that there is an outlet, there's a way that they can be saved. The other things that we're doing is supporting companies and organizations that support survivors, because training our drivers isn't enough. So we're partnering with some amazing organizations like Wellspring Living, an Atlanta-based nonprofit that provides residential and community-based wraparound services for women and girls to help them break the cycles of human trafficking and to restore dignity. Wellspring Living is survivor-based, and they are solely focused on making sure that girls go from becoming victims to thriving after they're rescued. It's an amazing partnership. The other thing that I'm super excited about is the generosity of our UPS employees. When we rolled out this process, and it's been a 7-year process at UPS, our employees met this with so much enthusiasm that UPSers have now donated on their own more than $8 million dedicated solely to anti-human trafficking efforts, which is amazing. Our employees are volunteering, but they're also giving of their treasure, and that speaks volumes of the heart and soul and the connectedness that employees have around this issue. So I know I've shared with you a lot of sobering statistics and talked to you about the problem. What's the solution? What's the call to action? Everybody here can play a role in making sure that human trafficking is something that we're not talking about 20, 30 years from now. There are 3 things that you can do right now to make a difference. First of all, learn the signs. And I will tell you right now, there is no one size fits all. It depends on the circumstance, but the first thing that you can do is be observant. Stop looking at the phone when you're walking through the airport. Get off the phone when you're in the parks, when you're walking your dog, or when you're playing with your kids, and look around. Do you see people who look like they are crestfallen or scared? Do you see girls and boys with markings on their neck or on their arms that shouldn't be there? Do you see folks as you're boarding a plane that don't look like they're with the companion? And I will say that sometimes it's a little nerve-wracking to take that time and you think that you're wrong. There's no penalty for being wrong as long as you are acting in good faith. The next thing that you can do is talk to our children and the young people in your life, because human traffickers are making a ploy for our kids through social media platforms, and COVID-19 really exacerbated this. So make sure that you know who your kids are DMing with. Make sure you know who they're talking with on their cell phones and in their chat rooms, because groomers have it out for our kids. And the best way to intervene is to be vigilant and to educate your children. The third thing that you can do is volunteer with organizations like Wellspring Living. Make sure that you get proximate to this issue in your community. It will help you understand what is transpiring, whether you are helping a victim with resume writing skills or supporting them in childcare needs, or if you're giving of your money. These organizations need our help. At the beginning of my talk, I invited you to take a journey with me, a road trip. Then I put the brakes on that road trip with some sobering statistics about a crime that's hidden in plain sight that takes place along our journey every single day. We need to open our eyes to this atrocity. We can do this. We can create a world where human trafficking does not exist on our watch. I am excited to be on this journey and really happy that I've got 500,000 UPSers rolling with me, and I invite you to join us. Thank you.
Really very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess the first question is a personal one about you, because what inspired me when I was reading about you is just how your dedication to public policy and public change has been there since the beginning. So where did you get that from, and what nurtured it?
Thank you for the question. I think so much goes back to my family. I grew up in Athens, Georgia. I'm the daughter of two educators, but I'm also the daughter of two people who were rooted in faith, and they were servant leaders. And so just seeing my mom teaching Sunday school, seeing my dad, who is really a farmer, who turned the dean of the College of Agriculture at the University of Georgia before he deceased. They were servant people, and they cared about the community, and they really taught me, to whom much is given, much is required. And so I've sort of taken that to heart in my daily work.
And then to that point, to do it inside a multinational legacy company, how on earth does that work, especially with this initiative? Yeah. I mean, how, I know that's a massive question, but whatever guidance or advice you can give to us, that change can happen such of a...
Yeah, I will say that at the beginning, this almost didn't happen. It's not an initiative that I came looking for, to be honest. I was in government affairs, and I was contacted by a legislative official, a state attorney general, who was wanting us to underwrite some billboards in Georgia around human trafficking. And so they really, came to me and said, listen, UPS is a big company. Will you underwrite these billboards and put your name, as the Final Four was coming into Atlanta? And they said, will you underwrite this initiative? And I said, no, we're not going to put our brand aside human trafficking, because I didn't understand the issue.
Oh.
And I thought...
What was your first thought?
My first thought was that we are a conservative company. We do things that are safe, and we do things that have instant brand recognition that people are talking about and that are cool.
Yeah.
And this felt messy. And so the reason that we were able to move forward was because he asked me to really talk to some of the nonprofits and understand the issue in Atlanta, which is where UPS is based. And when I did that as a mother, I just couldn't unhear and unlearn what the nonprofits were sharing. And so beyond the billboards, I thought, we can do more than this. We've got 100,000 drivers on the road. They see everything. Our guys and ladies are rescuing puppies. They go in and, if there's a woman who's in labor, the UPS driver is going to help. They carry dog biscuits. I drove a UPS truck for 3 months. I knew where the kids were. I did.
The neighborhood. I
know the
neighborhood. UPS drivers. I love them.
We know the neighborhood. Yeah. And when I had to drive, I saw the kids who were skipping school. I knew. And I thought, but we're in these neighborhoods. We are the community, and let's see if our drivers will latch on to this.
And that was how long ago?
That was 7 years ago.
Okay.
So this has not been a quick initiative. And so my advice for people trying to do something at this scale is be patient, but be persistent. Don't take the first no, but also get a champion at the top.
A champion at the top.
Yes, absolutely. So I went to our chief operating officer because sometimes you build things and you say, oh, I'm just going to try to get a group of people and let's see if this happens as a grassroots initiative. I knew for this to stick, we would need senior leadership. I was not in this role at the time. I was not in this role. I was in government affairs, but I knew that if we needed the drivers, I had to get to the person who was over all of our drivers.
Right.
And that was our chief operating officer. And so I built a plan. And I literally met him at the airport. He was flying into DC for an unrelated initiative. And I said, can I pick you up at the airport and pitch something to you?
Fantastic. I love that. Yeah. You go to the top and then you show up, you be there.
Mm-hmm.
To that end, there's another partnership that you developed, and we've got a really special guest. Yes. So I want to bring Christian Murthy up here. The first question, obviously, so Christian is the deputy director, soon to be CEO of Wellspring Living, which was mentioned in Nikki's talk. So I first want to understand how the two of you met, and I think I have an idea, but and then what the partnership, what is it about, and how did it get started?
Sure. Do you want to start?
Okay, I'll go. So we had been sponsoring and supporting Wellspring Living for several years, and our employees brought us Wellspring Living as an opportunity to do a dinner and to support the gala. And Wellspring's CEO currently is a woman named Mary Frances Boley, who is just an amazing champion advocate. There are so many words to describe Mary Frances, but Wellspring is her baby.
That's right.
And Christian will succeed Mary Frances, who is the founder and CEO, and Christian will take the lead and take the reins soon as Mary Frances retires. So I met Christian through Mary Frances as we were thinking about how UPS could deepen our partnership in human trafficking.
And we have always been in the space of really looking for people who are not just willing to talk about the issue, but also do something about it. And so the awareness and the strategies that UPS has implemented over the years has made tremendous difference, not only, of course, in our community, but also across the country and the world. And I think that one of the most powerful things that I've seen UPS do is stand beside us in this work. It can get frightening. It can be frustrating sometimes, but really seeing us through many different obstacles and seeing that there's an opportunity for them to actually really serve in a very thoughtful way. So it's not just what happens at the event, but it's what happens each and every day of the year.
Right.
Makes a difference.
And tell us a little bit more about Wellspring and also UPS's role in it, but more about your work.
Yeah. So Mary Frances was actually a retired kindergarten teacher who wanted to do something special for women through women's ministry. And so she really got to do a lot of deep diving and learning more about the issues around Atlanta and decided to open a safe space. And unbeknownst to her, 22 years ago, the first person who walked through our doors, our home for 5 women, was a trafficking survivor. She was someone who ran away with her boyfriend at age 16 from Kansas City, was trafficked all the way from there to Georgia, and at 22 came to our doors. And so we learned so much that you can't just have a safe space, right? You also have to have transformative healing and mental health and therapeutic resources to get to the root causes of trauma like this. And then also you have to think about how do we get them back into the community and help them believe in their dreams again. And so apprenticeship opportunities, GED training, all of those types of things can be really critical. And UPS has been with us too and has a great apprenticeship partnership that helps them to get a resume with things that they can be proud of the story that they're telling about their lives.
The key issue, which is this idea of it's happening right in front of us. And what was chilling were some of the things that I read and some of the things that we've talked about where there are certain spikes during parts of the day. So at conferences, sporting events, John's as they're known, the activity spikes. It also spikes at 2 p.m., which is just
That was a study from Businesses Ending Slavery and Trafficking out in Washington, in Seattle, Washington. They did this study that showed that sex buying spiked at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, which really meant that people were doing this on company time, okay, from their computers, and that they were everyday people who had access to computers. And we know that during sporting events, so Atlanta's going to host the World Cup soon.
You mentioned the Final Four.
The Final Four. And that means that these are men largely who have access to money and time, right, to be able to buy these Johns. And so that was one of the things that we wanted to shed a light on, is that, no buyer, no victim. And so how do we start to unravel this notion of the John and making sure that we're not just victimizing the girls, and boys who are victims, but shining that light on the John who is an everyday person.
And stopping that in some way.
Well, it's not a miss on us that 2 o'clock is also close to the time that school ends, right? And so some of the youth that we support are actively enrolled in school. Maybe they aren't participating every day. Maybe they have homework that is not being turned in on time, but they are being in communities and spaces where they are often overlooked.
And what, I guess, it's interesting because I was just in London last week and I went to the airport washroom where they have the signs and they have an image of a woman. And they say, it was a very simple message, which is if you see this, do something. But I was in the washroom and I was thinking, but what am I going to do? And how do I see something? And I'm curious if you can tell us a little bit more about how we can take action.
Absolutely. And Nikki shared the national hotline, which I think is very helpful, but also it's just as easy as calling 911 when you see something that feels suspicious. And so one of the examples that I also give is like women or girls who are not in control of their own possessions. Someone is holding their ID or holding their information from them, or, keeping their luggage with them at all times, or keeping a close eye at the bathroom and not really giving them a lot of space to just have privacy. But also lack of eye contact can be a thing too. So when we're talking about getting ready for the workforce, we have to encourage you to be able to look people in the eye and really have that conversation with someone. But I think it's just a part about courage. We are not asking for people to become superheroes by calling, police authorities. We're asking people to be curious and have the courage to say something when they feel like something's not quite right.
Yeah.
I want to add a fine point on that because one of the things that we can all do, and I talked about it a little bit, is being more observant. But if you're looking for the words to say, try, are you okay? Are you okay? When you see, and I've done this in an airport, and it was because she looked distraught, okay? And I said, are you okay? Turned out she wasn't being trafficked. She had lost her bag and she was freaking out because she couldn't find her luggage. So I was then able to help her reunite with TSA because this was, sort of during pandemic times and there wasn't a lot of help. But when someone is visibly distraught, when someone looks despondent. And I think from a humanity side, we need to get used to saying, are you okay? Is there any way I can help you? And you never know what goes from there.
And it's a good neutral question.
It's a good neutral
but
question.
It's an action question. I really thank you for sharing that with us. So you're heading into position as CEO, taking a strong leadership position in 2024. What do you want to do and how can this community help you? And then the same thing for you, continuing on in your role, what can this community do for you? So
there's so much. I think there can be a lot of prayers. We all need a lot more love, I think, each and every one of these days, especially with the world and the climate that we're in. But we are in the middle of a capital campaign, which we're calling the Welcome Home campaign, to create more safe spaces for women and children. There's actually not a long-term residential care for youth who don't identify as female. We're creating the first of its kind in our state. That's actually the one building that's not fully funded yet. I've got $4.6 million that is left unnamed to really help children as young as 12, but up to age 17. And when you know that there is a child that on average comes into the life at age 14, there's a lot more work that we have to do.
On average, age 14. I want to make sure people heard that. Right. The average age of a child coming into sex trafficking in Georgia, I'm not sure about other states, is 14.
Mm-hmm. And you think about what does it mean to be an 8th grader or a 9th grader and the typical challenges that we see with other teens, because I've got a teen of my own. But really, how can we stop the issue right where it is and also create generational change, generational impact? And so I invite people to visit us at wellspringliving.org/welcome home to see how they can be a part of this, because I think not only can you invest, as you've said so wisely, with your time, your talent, but your treasure makes a difference too.
Thanks, Christian. So, and Nikki, what other, this is as we talk about PopTech community, we are doers. We're here to collaborate and leverage each other and help.
I think collaboration is the key. So we've found that public-private partnerships really are effective. This anti-human trafficking space is an issue that's not partisan, thankfully. And so we've been able to work across the aisles quite a bit because legislation is very important. Georgia is an example where, in Atlanta, we've got a Democrat mayor who's working alongside the Republican governor. His wife is one of the leading champions of sex trafficking awareness, I should say. And I know that same thing. You gotta have the anti there, or it trips you up every time. Um, but it's a nonpartisan issue, and so I think if there are those of you in the audience who have a special sauce, whether it's technology, whether it's capital, whether it's communications, whether it's brand and marketing, that can lend your time and your resources to help us be exponentially better in this. Because the UPS Foundation, we do a range of things. Humanitarian relief really is our sweet spot, using our logistics network to create opportunities to deliver medical supplies and vaccines around the globe. But our anti-human trafficking piece is the heart and soul when I think about what makes me most proud about what we do, because it involves our employees. It involves our customers a lot of times. We just announced a partnership with Delta Airlines, where both of us donated $1 million to Wellspring Living. And to be able to work with our customers in these kinds of campaigns is really important. So for those of you looking for a way to invest and a way to make a difference and learn something that will be life-changing, we invite you to join us.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming and sharing this and enlightening us and kind of raising the curtain on it. It's something that we can all do better with. Thank you.
Thank you for the
you so
opportunity.
much. Thank you.